Hello friends, this is Sachin and I welcome all of you to my YouTube channel. Friends, in this video we are going to discuss another age of English literature that is known as Restoration Age, which started in the year of 1660 and it ended in the year of 1702. Now we will discuss some historical background and important facts of this age. From 1969 to 1660, the Puritan Empire took place. In 1658, Oliver Cromwell, the protector of the Puritan Empire, died. Before Lord Oliver Cromwell, there was Charles King, who was the England of king, and he was a very lavish king. And then these Puritan people, they were against Charles King, and then they attacked Charles King and they executed him. They had a civil war during that time from 1642 to 1649, and then with the help of Lord Oliver Cromwell, they killed King Charles I. And then this is how this Puritan Empire took place from 1949 to 1660. From 1649 to 1660, and then this person ruled for 10 to 12 years in England. Charles II attacked England in 1660. He killed many Puritans. The big Puritan army could not defend England, and finally Charles II took control of England again, called the restoration of monarchy. So it was the restoration of monarchy because the Puritan Empire was the first democracy in England. So it was the first democracy in England. Before that, only kings ruled, and then later after this age, the Puritan age, again the restoration of monarchy was established. So it was called the Restoration Age. In 1661, Charles II launched the Corporation Act. According to this act, all the members of municipal corporations and government sectors were told to get a license from the state church so that their religious creed would be revealed and they would be very true to the king. The church would give the license to the public after making them swear in the name of God and the Bible that they would never revolt against the king as they did in the time of Charles King. So Charles II was very clever king. He knew that public as well as the church, they went against his father, King Charles I. So that's why he launched this act, the Corporation Act. According to this act, the municipal corporation and government sectors have to get a license from the state church, which was already under Charles II. In 1662, the Uniformity Act was passed. According to this act, Charles II launched a common prayer book in lieu of in the same way that Elizabethan age had a common prayer book. So that book emphasized the Protestant religion because Charles II was a secret Catholic. But as seeing the majority of the public, those who were mostly Protestant, he declared himself a Protestant and passed a common prayer book with a Protestant literature majority. In 1664, the Conventicle Act was passed. According to this act, the private meetings of Puritans were banned. The Puritans were not allowed to meet personally. They were not allowed to gather in the number of 3 to 4. They were told to live a secluded life. Charles II had no legitimate son. He had various affairs and had a lot of illegitimate sons. In 1679, the parliamentarians, they brought the exclusion bill. Actually, Charles II, as I told you, he had no legitimate son and a lot of illegitimate sons he had. So he wanted his one of his cousin, James II, to become the king of England. And Parliament, they were against this decision because James II was a very crude Catholic, and they knew that it would have like a lot of bad effects on the republic. So in 1679, the parliamentarians, they brought the exclusion bill. According to this, they requested James II's exclusion from the succession. So in 1688, when Charles II he died, and then James II became the king because he didn't hear the parliamentarians. He dissolved the parliament and he became the true monarch. He didn't listen to anyone, and he made James II the rightful heir of the throne. And in 1688, when William the Orange, also called William III, became the king, because the public revolution which William had with James II, it was called the bloodless revolution because no fight happened, and it is called a glorious revolution. So when James II became king, as he was a crude Catholic, so he didn't listen to the public. He made very strict rules, and then these parliamentarians, they went to William the Orange and they requested him, and then he came, and James II was a coward. He ran away from the place, and then without any bloodshed, William the Orange, William III, became the king of England. So later on, Spanish people attacked England because this person, William the Orange, he also didn't have any son. And so Spanish people, when he died, Spanish people attacked England, and it was called the War of Spanish Succession, which started in 1701 and ended in 1713. Seeing this war, the ministers immediately appointed Princess Anne as the next queen, and the timing started from 1702 to 1714. The whole timing is called the New Classical Age or the Augustan Age. As I told you, William the Orange, he died around 1692 to 1693, and then his wife ruled. His wife, along with her sister, they ruled for some years, and then they also died. And then Spanish people, they wanted Princess Anne to become the queen of England, but England was against it, and then these Spanish people, they attacked England, and this is how Princess Anne became the queen. It is also known as the age of French influence because Molière inspires the Restoration comedies, who came from France, and Corneille, who also came from France, he inspires Restoration tragedies. Jeremy Collier was a clergy, and he didn't like the concept of Restoration comedy of manners, especially the obscenity and the vulgarity. He wrote a pamphlet to criticize Restoration literature. The pamphlet was called A Short View on the Immortality and Profaneness of English State, published in 1698. Here he criticizes 9 writers, that is John Vanbrugh, William Congreve, William Wycherley, and John Dryden. So these are the people who have been criticized out of 9 people. John Vanbrugh is the first one criticized by him, Congreve is the second, Wycherley is the third, and Dryden is the fourth. Only Dryden pleaded guilty when the book was published, while others made lame excuses. The country was divided into 2 national parties at the time, the Whigs, who sought to limit the royal power in the interest of the parliament, and the people, and the Tories, who strove to check the people's growing power in the interest of their hereditary rulers. Both parties, however, were largely devoted to the Anglican Church, and when James II, after 4 years of misrule, attempted to establish a national Catholicism by intrigues that aroused the protest of the Pope as well as of Parliament, then Whigs and Tories, Catholics and Protestants, united in England's last great revolution. The complete and bloodless revolution of 1688, which called William of Orange to the throne, was simply an indication of England's restored health and sanity. So during that time, we also had the Royal Society, which was for investigating and discussing scientific questions. It was founded in 1662 and soon included practically all the literary and scientific men of the age. It encouraged the work of Isaac Newton, who was one of its members, and its influence for truth at a time when men were still trying to compound the philosopher's stone, calculating men's actions from the stars, and hanging harmless old women for witches can hardly be overestimated. We also got to know or found heroic couplet during this time, which is a 2 iambic pentameter lines that rhyme together, is the most suitable form of poetry. Waller began to use it in 1623. He is generally regarded as the father of the couplet, for he is the first poet to use it consistently in most of his poetry. Chaucer used rhymed couplet wonderfully well in his Canterbury Tales, but in Chaucer it is the poetical thought more than the expression which delights us. Waller and Dryden made the couplet the prevailing fashion, and in their hands the couplet becomes closed. Each pair of lines must contain a complete thought stated as precisely as possible. Now we will discuss the important writers of this age, and then important writer starts with John Dryden. John Dryden, who was born in 1631 and died in 1700. So Dryden was born a Puritan. He celebrated the death of Cromwell when he wrote heroic stanza in 1659. In 1660, when Charles II became the king, he welcomed Charles II with the work Astrea Redux, which means star re-established. His panegyric to his sacred majesty breathed more devotion to the old goat, as the king was known to his courtiers, than his earlier poem to Puritanism. John Dryden became poet laureate in 1668, and in 1671 he became the historiographer of England. Dryden said he was drawing the outlines of a new art in his poetry, prose and poetry, but had no teacher to instruct him. The four things: the tendency to vulgar realism in the drama, a general formalism that came from following set rules, the development of a simpler and more direct prose style, and the prevalence of the heroic couplet in poetry are the main characteristics of Restoration literature. They are all exemplified in the work of one man, that is John Dryden. Now we will discuss some of his important works. So first of all, he has written a poem on his sacred majesty, only title is enough. Next he has written Annus Mirabilis or Year of Miracles, which was published in 1667. Here he celebrated three important events: the Plague of London 1665, the Great Fire of London 1666, and the defeat of the Dutch fleet 1667. This helped him gain royal favor and get the poet laureateship. Next he has written The Medal. Here he praised Charles II in this work, which Thomas Shadwell criticized in his The Medal of John Bose. Next he has written a poem Mac Flecknoe. This is an important poem. You can read the summary of this poem. So Dryden replied to Shadwell by writing this lampoon, which means political satire. The meaning of the title Mac Flecknoe is where Mac means son and Flecknoe means Richard Flecknoe. So Mac Flecknoe means son of Flecknoe. Thomas Shadwell has been called the stupidest person ever. The opening lines of this work are: all things are subject to decay, and fate summons, monarch must obey. Now we will discuss some of the other works written by Dryden. So he has written Absalom and Achitophel, which was published in 1681. This is also an important work. You can read the summary of this book. It is a political allegory that deals with the problems of that day. Charles II was introduced as King David, Absalom, Duke of Monmouth, Charles II's illegitimate son, and was mixed up in the Ree House plot. Shaftesbury was Achitophel, the evil counselor, and the Duke of Buckingham was satirized as Zimri. He uses it to ridicule the big party and also to revenge himself upon his enemies. In 1682 appeared his Religio Laici, Religion of a Layman, defending the Anglican Church against all sects, especially the Catholics and Presbyterians. But 3 years later, when James II came to the throne with schemes to establish the Roman faith, Dryden turned Catholic and wrote his most famous religious poem, The Hind and the Panther, beginning: a milk-white hind, immortal and unchanged, fed on the lawns and in the forest ranged, without unspotted innocent within, she feared no danger, for she knew no sin. The hind is a symbol for the Roman Church, and the Anglicans, as a panther, are represented as persecuting the faithful. Numerous other sects, Calvinists, Anabaptists, Quakers, were represented by the wolf, boar, hare, and other animals, which gave the poet an excellent chance to exercise his satire. Next he has written Power of Music, title is enough, and he has also written Ode on a Song for Saint Cecilia's Day. The opening lines of these poems are: from harmony, from heavenly harmony, this universal frame began. Next he has written Wild Gallant, which was published in 1663. It is the first published work of comedy of manners. And next he has written some dramas, that is the Indian Queen, the Rival Ladies, the Indian Emperor, and Aurangzeb. Here we find an Indian theme. In Aurangzeb we find an Indian theme. There has been a question in NET exam that out of these 4 dramas, in which drama we find the Indian theme. So it is the Aurangzeb where we find the Indian theme. Next he has written All for Love. It is based on Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, especially the last scene. He wrote this play to please himself. It was written in blank verse. Most of the others' work is written in rhymed couplets. Next he has written The Conquest of Grenada. After that he has written Lord's Vashan, and then he has written Alexander's Feast, 1697. In this work we have the King Alexander, who had a lot of friends when he was rich, and they would he would invite all of his friends to his parties, and they do have fun during these parties. And later on, when King Alexander became poor, so these friends, they stopped paying visits to his friend. And then one day he called again all of his friends, and then in the bowl he offered them stones and other grass and these kind of things. And then he told them, as you had kind of various delicious dishes during my good times, So now I have bad times, so I am forced to eat grass and stones. So you also are required to eat the same stuff that I am having right now. So this is kind of a good book, good work. If you want to read it, you can. Next we have Fables, which was published in 1700. It contains poetical paraphrases of the tales of Boccaccio and Chaucer and the miscellaneous poems of his last years. The preface to the Fables is generally admired as an example of the new prose style developed by Dryden and his followers. Next we have is the preface to the Fables. After that we have of heroic plays, and then he has written Discourse on Satire, and then one important work, that is Essay of Dramatic Poesy, which was published in 1668. It is an important work. You can read it if you want to. Dryden's influence could be summed up into the following three elements. He developed the heroic couplet as the fashion satiric, didactic and descriptive poetry. He developed a direct, serviceable prose style such as we still cultivate. He developed the art of literary criticism in his essays and in the numerous prefaces to his poems. Now we will discuss some other important writers of this age, that is William Congreve, who is next important to John Dryden in Restoration age. He was born in 1670 and died in 1729. He has written Old Bachelor, which was published in 1693. Only title is enough. And then he has written The Double Dealer, 1694. Title is enough. And then he has written Love for Love, which was published in 1695. Here we find Miss Prue and Angelica as the most important characters. So you can read a summary of this work. Again, he has written The Mourning Bride. The most important quotations from this book are: music has the charm to soothe a savage breast. The critics studied a lot and they said that it should be beast, but people said that it is breast. In Act 3, Scene 8, we find a line that is: heaven has no rage like love to hater turned, nor hell a fury like a woman's scorn. So these two are the important quotations. You can remember these quotations because they generally ask these lines in net exams. And next he has written very important work, that is The Way of the Word, which was published in 1700. The play's opening scene is in Chocolate House. Now you have to read this play. Look, it is very important play, so you cannot avoid this play. Either read the detailed summary of this play or read the entire play if you have time. I am not discussing the story over here because it is very important. I want you to read this work. And in the meantime, maybe in future I will also upload a summary of the same, a detailed summary of the same on my YouTube channel also. But in the meantime, you can read the summary, detailed summary, or you can go through the whole play also. And then we have the next writer we have is Sir George Etheridge. He was born in 1636 and died in 1691. He has written a work that is The Comical Revenge, which is also called Love in a Tub, and it was published in 1664. Next he has written The Man of Mode, which was published in 1676, and the subtitle of this book is Foppling Flutter. Next writer we have is William Wycherley. He was born in 1636 and died in 1691. He has written a work Love in a Wood and Plain Dealer, and next he has written Country Wife, which was published in 1675. This play has a China scene where the hero is talking to someone, which is taken while the old lady is in a very obscene way, and they make the double meaning of this talk. Last work written by him is The Gentleman Dancing Master. Next we have is John Vanbrugh, who was born in 1664 and died in 1726. He has written a work Relapse. It is a sequel to Love's Last Shift or The Fool in Fashion, written by Coley Saber. It is also called Virtue Rewarded. Pamela by Richardson is also called Virtue Rewarded. Next writer we have is Samuel Butler, who was born in 1612 and died in 1680. His most important work is Hudibras. It is a prose Puritan satire. King Charles II gave the cash award to the writer. It is based on a Spanish book called Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. The king made it mandatory for all the courtiers to carry a copy of Hudibras. The king carried a copy in his pocket himself, and courtiers vied with each other in quoting its most scurrilous passages. It describes the adventures of a fanatical justice, Ralpho, in their endeavor to put down all innocent pleasures. Hudibras and Ralpho, the two extreme types of the Puritan party, Presbyterians and Independents, are mercilessly ridiculed. A second and a third part containing the adventures of Hudibras were published in 1664 and 1668. Next we have Thomas Hobbes, who was born in 1588 and died in 1679. He has written a book that is Leviathan, or the Matter, Form and Power of a Commonwealth, which was published in 1651. It is one of the first books in the literature that studies the political condition of a nation involving the geological condition, which is presently called geopolitics. He says that self-interest is the only guiding power of humanity and that blind submission to rulers is the only true basis of government. Next we have John Locke, who was born in 1632 and died in 1704. He has written a work, An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, and it was written in 1690. Here he has discussed the concept of tabula rasa. This is a Latin term that means blank slate. The writer did not use the word blank slate in the book. He keeps on using tabula rasa, which stands for the mind. Tabula rasa concept becomes important in empiricist philosophy. This philosophy is propounded by Plato, Aristotle, Bentham, J.C. Well, Francis Bacon, John Locke, etc. All these writers are the propounders of empiricist philosophy. This is a study of the nature of the human mind and the origin of ideas, far more than the work of Bacon and Hobbes is the basis upon which English philosophy has been since been built. So in tabula rasa, this says that mind is a blank slate. When the kid is born, his mind is like a tabula rasa. His mind is a blank slate, and the more experience he has of the word, the more knowledge he gains. So this is the concept of tabula rasa. So next we have Thomas Otway, who was born in 1652 and died in 1685. He has written a work, Venice Preserved, or A Plot Discovered, which was published in 1676. Next he has written Orphan, which was published in 1680. It is an important work and you can go through the summary of this work. The subtitle of this story is The Unhappy Marriage. Here the heroine Monimia gives a signal to her husband, 3 soft strokes on a chamber door. So it is a really very interesting story and you can go through this story and read the story because it is very important. Next we have Nathaniel Lee, who was born in 1653 and died in 1692. He has written a work, Nero, and then he has written The Rival Queen. The subtitle of this book is The Death of Alexander the Great. Here he has copied the style of John Dryden. The tragedy is written in rhyme, heroic couplet. And then we have Nicholas Rowe, who was born in 1674 and died in 1718. He became poet laureate in 1715. He has written biography of Shakespeare. He is famously called the first modern editor of Shakespeare. He is famous for she tragedies, that is known as woman-oriented tragedies. His famous works are Ambitious Stepmother, The Tragedy of John Snow, The Tragedy of Lady John Grey. Now we will discuss political prose writing. So first of all we have is Equinobasilike by Bishop Gordon, and then John Milton replied to this by writing Iconoclastes. And next we have Power of Love, which was published in 1643 by William Congreve. And next we have The Commonwealth of Oceania, published in 1656 by James Harrington. And then Milton's Sons of Belial, flown with insolence and wine, is a good expression of the vile character of the court writers and of the London theatres for 30 years following the Restoration. Here I am not discussing about Equinobasilike by Bishop Gordon and Iconoclastes by John Milton, because I have already discussed about these works in Puritan age. So you can watch my video on Puritan age to get to know about these works. Next we will discuss diary writers of this age. So first of all we have one of the important diary writers as Samuel Pepys, who was born in 1633 and died in 1703. His diary was discovered in 1825. All the pages of his diary were published from 1970 to 1983. The final publication came in 1983. From 1970 to 1983, they kept on publishing his pages and diaries as they were discovered. He was the one who recorded the history of 9 years from 1660 to 1669. He also recalls his childhood days when he attended the funeral of Charles I at the age of 15. In 1662, he saw Shakespeare's famous work, The Midsummer Night's Dream, and commented that it was the most insipid, ridiculous play that I ever saw in my life. In 1663, he attended the play performance Twelfth Night and again commented it was a silly play not related to the day and the person. He has criticized Shakespearean comedies, but he has praised Shakespearean tragedies. He witnessed the Great Fire of London, the Great Plague of London, and the defeat of the Dutch fleet. For the Great Fire of London, he says, flames were as high as they were kissing the sky. Next, we have John Evelyn, Discourse on Forest Trees. She accurately reflects the life and spirit of the Restoration. She says, I saw Hamlet played, but now the old plays began to disgust this defined age, since His Majesty's been so long abroad. She was the author of Silva, and the first book on trees and forestry in English, and Terra, which is the first attempt at a scientific study of agriculture, but the world has lost sight of these two good books. Next, we have Lady Hutchinson. She has recorded her personal experiences in her diary. And at last, we have Margaret Cavendish, the true relation of my birth, breeding, and life. So friends, our video on Restoration Age finally ends here. I hope you have gained some valuable insights from this video. And if you have any question, query related to this age or anything related to English literature, then you can put down those queries in the comment section. And if you like the video, then please do like, share and comment on the video. And please subscribe the channel for further such updates. We'll see you in another video very soon. Till then, have a great day.